Wildlife and its habitat cannot speak, so we must and we will. Theodore Roosevelt.
Good morning, Charu Chachi. Where has Polly gone? I don't see him perched on your shoulder as usual this morning.
अरे क्या बोलूं? Polly has taken to visiting the Pongam Valley nowadays. He enjoys cracking with his beak the karanji-like pods of the tree and munching on them. Right now, I'm sure the trees there must be full of pods. Here he comes.
Ayyo! His beak is stuffed with the karanj tree pods. You look so funny, Polly. It's a good thing Charu Chachi does not keep you in a cage and lets you roam freely wherever you please.
He is half wild, my Polly, though he always returns home at night from wherever he is to sleep in his little cozy cot. I'm sure he has many friends out there in the jungle, all wild parrots.
Charu Chachi, I've got an idea. My vacation starts tomorrow. Why don't we go to Pongam Valley for a day-long nature trail tomorrow? Just to get the feel of the jungle. I can ask Ma to pack us a picnic lunch.
I think that is a brilliant idea. The weather too is just right nowadays. No need to pack anything for Polly though. He will help himself to the karanj pods and other wild fruits while he interacts with his wild parrot friends.
And so, early next morning, Tara and Charu Chachi are off to the Pongam Valley, armed with their picnic lunch, while Polly keeps flying over their heads, whistling and squawking excitedly. Before they reach Pongam Valley, they happen to pass by some hamlets.
You must be hungry and thirsty, Tara, but let us wait till we reach the buffer zone of the forest before we unpack our picnic basket.
It already feels like a jungle around here. Quite a few wild birds. Look, those birds with the turquoise wings.
Those are the roller birds, hunting for insects in the air. And do you see that herd of chittal?
Ayyo! So much wildlife here, even before we have reached the jungle. But there are some shacks here too, and people living in them too seem to have grown vegetables in small patches. Some of them are even grazing their cattle.
That is because this is the transition zone of the wildlife sanctuary that we are about to enter. Puzzled? Let me explain. We have entered a biosphere reserve, a region which has a lot of natural biodiversity and is protected legally from being exploited for commercial use.
What do you mean by commercial use, Chachi?
It means people cannot set up factories or industries, nor can they convert this area into a busy city, nor can they carry out large-scale cultivation of crops like coffee, tea or palm oil trees to earn money. But they can live here and even grow their own food.
But what if they cut down lots of trees for their own needs? What if they hunt the wild animals for meat?
These are the original tribal people who have always been living in forested land and understand the forest and its inmates very well. Since they are the original inhabitants, it is not fair to drive them away from here. The tribals know the importance of sustainable living and will not destroy the forest.
Charu Chachi, you were talking of us going into the buffer zone. What is the buffer zone?
We have just entered the buffer zone. In this zone of the forest, tourists are allowed entry. Researchers are allowed in to carry out their study of the biodiversity. And so that economic growth too takes place, the tribals are allowed to carry out activities connected with their livelihood, such as fishing in the streams, honey gathering, and growing of their own greens and crops.
And look! Polly has found his friends here in the buffer zone. They are all conversing in their raucous walking language on the karanj tree.
Charu Chachi and Tara sit in the shade of a karanj tree and unpack their lunch.
You know, Tara, this forest too has forest guards and patrollers to ensure the wildlife here is safe. But it is also thanks to the tribal people living around here that the forest is thriving. In many other forests, large areas have been deforested and animals are trapped and poached.
How has that affected those places?
The shrinking forests have led to animals losing their homes, the habitats. Without their homes, they cannot survive. The territorial animals like leopards have been found to wander in the developed areas, which was once their home. This has resulted in conflicts between man and beast.
And why do poachers kill animals?
Poachers get a lot of money when they hunt and sell animals like tigers and leopards. In countries like China, people pay huge sums of money for their skins, which are made into garments, and also for their other parts like bones, which are used in making traditional Chinese medicine.
What a cruel thing to do to such a majestic animal.
Greed can make humans thoughtless. Rhinos have been hunted down for their horns, which are again wrongly believed to have medicinal value.
And elephants for their tusks out of which people make jewelry?
Actually, all the animal species have a role to play in the ecological balance. By losing them, we are doing harm to ourselves.
Polly, do you too have a role to play in the ecological balance?
He does. By feeding on those karanj pods, he may be dispersing their seeds in his poop to different parts of the forest, helping more karanj trees to grow far and wide.
What about the tiger, Charu Chachi? What role does the tiger play?
The tiger is needed to maintain our forests.
Kaise?
Dekho, the tiger eats herbivores like the deer, thus keeping their number under check. If the tiger vanishes from a jungle, then the deer population would go up.
Then the deer would eat up all the new saplings of trees and the jungle would soon have no trees left.
Bilkul sahi. And do you know what? Without trees, there can be soil erosion. Without the roots of trees to absorb rainfall and channel it underground, there would be no rivers.
Charu Chachi, after our lunch, can we go deeper into the forest?
Deeper inside is the core zone. Wahan hum nahi ja sakte. No humans are allowed inside. It is only for the wildlife and maybe the forest patrollers. Besides, it may be dangerous since most of the top predators like the tiger and leopard prefer the core zone as it is free of disturbance. We shall quench our thirst in that stream as it is absolutely pure water and then walk around here in the buffer zone. I shall show you something.
After walking a short distance in the buffer zone, Charu Chachi, Tara and Polly come across an ancient temple.
Look, Charu Chachi, an ancient temple all in ruins here in the middle of the forest.
This is what I wanted you to see. We are in a sacred grove, a Devrai.
What is a sacred grove?
It is a region of the forest closely guarded and where nature is worshipped by the local tribals since many years. That is why the temple. The deity to which the temple is devoted may be a particular wild animal or bird or tree or even a termite mound. Anything or any creature connected to nature.
That is why the temple has stone carvings of animals. This part of the forest is very dense too.
It is dense because no one is allowed to break off even a branch of a tree here, leave alone cut any of the trees. There are many such sacred groves all over India. Approximately 14,000 have been documented, and it is a form of wildlife conservation. Here in the Devrai, you will find a great variety of both flora and fauna.
I think the deity of this Devrai must be the peepal tree. The carving here in the center looks like a peepal tree, and there is a peepal tree growing out of the temple wall here.
And Polly is pulling at the figs from it.
Charu Chachi, you have explained to me what a biosphere reserve is. It is where the local communities and the flora and fauna are protected and allowed to coexist. But what are wildlife sanctuaries and national parks?
Yes, Tara. Those two are meant for wildlife conservation. Wildlife sanctuaries are normally devoted to the safeguarding of a particular species of insect, reptile, bird or mammal.
So, there are special sanctuaries like a butterfly sanctuary, bird sanctuary, tiger sanctuary?
Bilkul sahi. As for a national park, it is a large area protected by the government for its natural beauty, like mountains, rivers, and the wildlife in it. People are allowed to move around freely in a national park to appreciate and enjoy this beauty.
What about all the wildlife in the oceans? Are there sanctuaries to protect them too?
Arey haan! India has a long coastline with a treasure trove of marine life. We do have protected marine sanctuaries. The Rani Jhansi National Park around the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary of Odisha, Gulf of Mannar Marine National Park of Tamil Nadu are some of them. Chalo, let us play a game now. You can think of a place with a particular kind of landscape and I shall tell you which protected area could be present there and which iconic species it could be home to.
Good idea! I love that game. Shall we begin with the highlands in central India?
That is where the Kanha National Park is. It is famous for its tigers, though there are a number of other species like the four-horned antelope, the chittal, the nilgai, the mouse deer, sloth bear and many others.
What about the scrub forest of Gujarat?
That is the Gir Wildlife Sanctuary, famous for its Asiatic lions. In fact, this is the only place in the world that the Asiatic lions exist. The scrub forest with trees like ber, acacia and palash form just the right habitat for the lions. There are talks of translocating some of the lions to another place just in case a disease strikes in Gir. Then all of these lions would get wiped out.
Shall we go to West Bengal where the rivers Brahmaputra and Ganga meet?
That is where the largest mangrove forest in the world, the Sundarbans, lie. This is the only place where you get to see tigers swimming in the wide creeks. This unique habitat is extremely rich in biodiversity. There are so many species of insects, birds, reptiles and mammals. The highly endangered Ganges River dolphin is also to be found here.
How I wish I could visit this very interesting place one day along with Ma, Pitaji and you, Charu Chachi. What about the northeast where the river Brahmaputra flows? Is there any wildlife protection area there?
You seem to be targeting the right places. Yes, in the northeast is the Kaziranga Wildlife Sanctuary, where the tall elephant grass grows and where the great Indian rhinoceros, once critically endangered owing to hunting, has now revived thanks to the tireless efforts of the forest officials there. But besides the rhinoceros, this place is also home to elephants, hoolock gibbons, swamp deer, hog deer and wild boars. And each year during the monsoons, the forest officials have a tough time rescuing the wildlife when the banks of the Brahmaputra overflow.
Polly, what's the matter? Why are you protesting? Aha! I know. She is protesting because you haven't told us of any bird sanctuary.
Sorry, Polly. How could we have forgotten? The Keola Deo Ghana National Park in Bharatpur of Rajasthan is famous in all of Asia for its water birds, many of which migrate here during the winter from Russia and Siberia. Declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site at one time long ago, this place was a rampant shooting site just for sport for the Maharaja of Bharatpur.
Hunting? Just for sport? कैसी बात है ये?
Mano na mano. It has been recorded that in 1938, in just a single day, the Viceroy and his party shot down 4,273 birds. But in spite of that, today this place is flocked by 300 species of birds.
Did you hear that, Polly?
I think we had better head back homeward now. Before the sun sets and it turns dark, we can talk on our way back. What would you like me to talk about now?
Are there any communities of people, Charu Chachi, who have spent their lives in the protection of wildlife?
Oh yes. Long ago, Amrita Devi and her supporters, all Bishnoi women, gave up their lives protecting trees by hugging them to stop soldiers of the Maharaja of Jodhpur from cutting them down. This is how the Chipko movement began, hugging trees to protect them from the axe. Even today, the Bishnois worship nature, revere the Khejri tree of Rajasthan, and fiercely protect the black buck, which is to be found around their villages. There are several organizations too, devoted to wildlife conservation.
Can you tell me about them?
One of them is WWF, or World Wide Fund for Nature, a non-governmental international organization which works for the environment and reducing human impact on it.
Any other?
Then there is also Bombay Natural History Society, again a non-governmental organization which carries out research on endangered species and works towards reviving their numbers. They also carry out a number of educational programs to spread awareness among children.
I would like to be a part of one such organization and work towards the protection of wildlife and the environment.
That's the best way to repay back to nature for all that it does to you. Besides joining such organizations, you can also think of what you can do as an individual to help wildlife.
Thus, after giving the matter deep thought, Tara comes up with some interesting ideas towards protecting the wildlife around her home. Here are some of the things she did. She collected old plastic bottles from her neighbors and made bird feeders out of them. Tara made some nest boxes out of waste cardboard and dried coconut shells and hung them up for the birds. She creates a butterfly garden just outside her house in a sunny patch by planting beds of nectar-producing flowering plants like Nirgudi or Vitex nigando, lantana and periwinkle on one side, and host plants for caterpillars like bryophyllum, curry leaves, lemon plant and oleander. Lastly, Tara made a beautiful water garden. She filled a flat clay pot with water and grew some water lilies in them. She added a few fish too to the water. The lilies and water attracted dragonflies and even frogs.
Wildlife, your presence we all need. Wildlife, vital to great degree. Wildlife, you make up the food chain. Wildlife, from you we much to gain. Oh, wildlife, may you always thrive together in harmony. Our intertwined lives, our intertwined lives.